emerged from China this week that the last prisoner convicted over the infamous Tiananmen Square protests is now free. Tuesday marks 24 years since the massacre in Beijing, and yet all these years later, no one really knows how many died in the army's crackdown on the student-led pro-democracy movement. Estimates vary from 300 to several thousand. Among those who escaped the bullets and tanks were 3 Canadians. Tonight, they reflect on their brush with history and just how much the protests really changed China.
When I arrived, the crackdown had begun. The guns were blaring and the tanks were rolling down the streets, and people were taking shelter to the extent that they could.
Tons of gunfire from every angle, and all these bodies are coming out. People are really frantic and they're angry, and no one's thinking rationally. People were just smashing the door on city buses and somehow pushing the buses so that they would become a barrier for the tanks, and the tanks would just smash into the buses, you know. Nothing stops a tank.
Soldier opened fire to the crowd. 2 people were shot just beside me. One girl, 19 years old girl, she died in my husband's arm. A bullet was on her head.
If you were in the streets, the law was you were subject to execution, right? That if anybody in the streets would be shot.
On Monday morning, I was writing in the hotel room and my husband said, "You better get out here." And I walked out and there was the tank man standing in front of the tanks. The tanks were still trying to go around him. I saw the whole thing. And they tried to go around him and I started to cry. And I wear glasses, so it was like smearing my glasses, and I'm thinking, stop it. Stop crying, you have to watch this. And I saw him like a soccer goalie, moving from side to side. He wasn't gonna let the tanks pass. There was a whole row of tanks. The rest of the city's dead quiet, like no one's on the street. And then I watched as the lead tank driver turned off the tank. I heard it. And then I thought, okay, is this guy gonna leave? He didn't. He climbed onto the tank turret and was trying to talk to them. And they wouldn't, and they didn't do anything. And then he jumped down, and then they started the motors again, and he still tried to block them. Finally, 2 people on the sidelines pulled him away. And that was the moment. That was just an unforgettable moment. And I was thinking, how am I going to describe this? How am I going to describe this in a newspaper story?
The incident changed my life because since then, I can not go back to my hometown. I tried in 1996, but I was arrested at airport and I was interrogated for 24 hours. They asked me what I was doing in Canada, what I have been doing against the Chinese government, and etc., etc. It seems that they knew everything. And then they asked me to sign a confident letter and to say that I was misled by the Western power against China, and that I'm very regret, and to promise that I will never do anything related to human rights topics and this kind of stuff. And I said, I'm sorry, because you know that I'm not going to sign. If I sign, I'm lying to you, because this is not something can change my belief. So I refused, and then they said, we are sorry, then you have to go back to Canada. You cannot see your family member. I never imagined that I cannot go back to my hometown for 24 years, especially when my father passed away.
For me as an individual, what it meant for me is that I have principles too. I saw people die for the right to freedom of speech and things like that. So for me as a journalist, it's something worth dying for. It's very important. And in Canada, we take it for granted. It's like oxygen, you take it for granted. It's only when you don't have it that you go, wow, I can't breathe.
Every time that I think back on it, I get a very sick feeling, and I really get upset and get emotionally charged. On the anniversary of the event every year, right, there's a part of me that says, well, this is another sad birthday.
After all these years, the massacre in Tiananmen Square remains a highly sensitive topic in China. And this week, authorities staged another crackdown, this time online. All keyword searches for 24th anniversary and demonstration are blocked on a popular blogging site that posts 100 million messages a day. And 3 activists from a southern city were detained for seeking approval for a commemorative rally.